Good morning, Kathy, and welcome back to the Low Carb Paleo Show. Is that better?
Thank you, Alon. Nice to be here.
Absolutely. Good morning, Monsieur Mark.
Good morning to you both. I trust you are both suitably wonderfully well.
I am, but maybe you shouldn't trust me.
And I'm tucked away.
Yeah.
I'm tucked away.
Kathy, thank you for coming back on the show to talk about your COVID-19 experience. Could you give us a quick reminder of who you are, what you do, your background?
Well, I've been a licensed massage therapist in Texas since the fall of 1994. And let me see, I wrote a book. I guess you can see the title of it behind me, so I won't hold it up. Mm-hmm. And I actually came into massage therapy after I got very ill in 1988, and a dozen doctors couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. So I took off on my own venture and started figuring it out. And as it turns out, the mercury fillings in my teeth were basically destroying my body. So some of us have genetics that make us not able to detox and chelate, as they say, these heavy metals and toxins. And so that was my deal. So anyway, and mainstream medicine doesn't know. So in fact, they're injecting it into babies. So once you have, I had a grand mal seizure at 21 years old after 3 fillings were put in. Mm-hmm. And nobody caught it. And to think now, here I am, 30 or 40 years later, and seeing them injecting this into babies that are hours old is just kind of insane.
Yeah, but, we'll talk about this a little later, but yes, definitely I want to talk about it.
So anyway, that's who I am. I'm kind of a self-taught on this little journey, figured some stuff out, got well, and then touched my phone one day and my cell phone, and my life changed in another direction, and I was presented with another challenge. So anyway, that's who I am and where I am.
Okay, so what has been your experience so far with COVID-19 confinement?
Well,
maybe we should go back a little bit. You used to live in Austin, Texas, and you moved up in the what area again?
I'm in the Ozark Mountains of north central Arkansas.
Okay.
In Austin, we were on 1 acre in a subdivision surrounded by, 600 homes, and most of them were on 1 acre. But I had a smart meter on each side of me. I had 23 cell towers, 112 antennas in a 4-mile radius, and they were bringing in 5G.
Yeah.
And so when I touched my phone that day in October of 2016, a pain shot up my arm, and it felt like a blood pressure cuff was on too tight, and it stayed that way for 2 hours. It started easing up, but over the next few days, I realized I was highly sensitive to all forms of wireless technology. So the wireless alarm system that was in the home, the Wi-Fi, the other cell phones that were in the house with me, all became a factor, and even wiring errors that I think would be real typical for a 41-year-old home became an immediate issue. So we had to heal my electrical environment while trying to heal my body. And there I am living in what they call the third coast, which means tech central. Bring on the technology. And one of the amazing things is that when I got ill and couldn't get on the computer and couldn't touch my phone, I lost touch with a friend of mine in San Antonio. When I reconnected with her 18 months later, she too was sick. They had put a data collection meter on her bedroom wall. That's an electric meter that collects data for the entire subdivision, or up to 17 homes in a subdivision. And they call it the Medusa meter because they know whatever house they put it on, somebody in there is probably going to die. So I was really shocked that she did not die. And so I ran her house on antennasearch.com and discovered that she had 443 cell towers and 339 antennas in a 4-mile radius of her house.
Wow.
So this is what has become the new norm, actually, according to this Lena Pu, I think her name is, Pu. And she is, yeah, I mean, this is insane. So I have a blog. I'm going to hold it up because it's easier for people to see. I just wrote it on a piece of paper. Can y'all see that, or is it all white?
Browser.
Can you see it? noatt.blog.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's where I put this story. And after that happened to me and I got out of the woods, so to speak, not really, I was still in the city, but I was out of immediate danger, and we knew we needed to move, because that's actually what they say is the, if there's any hope of you getting well from this condition, you have to go where you cannot have any exposure. So unfortunately, I had to trade the cell towers and antennas of Austin for a very toxic form of smart meter here, and what I call a lawless and unkind utility corporation. And so my new life has become fighting the injustice that's going on. This is actually Chinese technology that they have stuck on our homes. And so I'm in the process of proving that, and God's putting some really cool people in my path and information in my path. And so, and our president recently on May the 1st signed an executive order saying that all equipment in our electrical grid that is manufactured, controlled, or overseen by a foreign adversary must be monitored and replaced. So right. I'm about to start a movement. I'm kind of at this point where I'm a frustrated activist, and I need to either quit, walk away, and shrug my shoulders, or turn this into a movement. Right. And so I think I've got to go for the movement. So
going back to the confinement, I guess it was probably not as difficult up in the mountains, right?
It's not, and I was already confined. When I touched my phone, I suddenly was not able to go into most buildings. I couldn't work because I can't go in most buildings. Can't use a cell phone, can't be around them, can't be around Wi-Fi. So I was already confined. Y'all are just joining me. That's how it feels to me, is you're getting a taste of what my life is like. I can't go to concerts. I can't, a trip to the ER would probably put me in electrical trauma and hasten my demise. So it's kind of a very interesting journey I'm on, but it is not as hard because I'm in the mountains and we have UPS and FedEx.
Right. So your issue is EMF sensitivity, right?
Yes, it's electromagnetic sensitivity. It's also known as electro-hypersensitivity. Radio wave sickness was a term from World War II. And so they know what this is. It's just a very inconvenient condition because a lot of us are getting sick now. But I put a post on that blog that says layers and layers of technology, and I show a map of the United States radar coverage. Our radar operations were saturated. And I showed a map for network coverage in the U.S., and you can see part of Mexico and Canada, and you can see the dramatic difference. We're saturated with networks. And I put up information about 16,956 satellites over us. And then we've got what we're doing here on ground level. And so you know, I don't know how much they think they can stack on top of us before the entire thing collapses. This is a fragile environment we live in, but industry and their corrupt relationships with governments and stuff have brought us to, and ignorant consumers. And now we're at a place, most of our lives are wrapped around this technology, and they can't, if they cut off their cell phone, they have no job. Yeah. So we're kind of in a pickle.
Of course, it's going to get worse with the coming 5G.
Yes.
So what's, can you give us your impression on the 5G and its, now, you know, they of course tell all the benefits, but they never talk about the negative side of it.
Again, I'll point people back to the blog at No ATT. There's probably 15 posts on there about 5G. I am, you know, Dr. Rashid Buttar. Have you been listening to some of his videos?
A couple of them, yes.
Yeah. I made a blog post out of one of them and put up a screenshot of him. And I put in the background that at the 18-minute and 11-second mark, he actually says that 5G will be human extinction and is absolutely a depopulation agenda. So, you know, it gets down to, do you believe this is ignorance or intentional? And if so, who's behind it? And there's some upsides. As far as I guess I don't want to leave that statement on the table without saying, you know, I'm not convinced that we're 100% doomed. Here again, I believe there is a correlation between 5G and COVID-19, and there's a post on my Facebook page that was a quote by Dr. Martin Pall, who basically said that the 5G is going to exacerbate the issues with COVID-19. You know, we're looking at what they're calling an infection or a virus that is less than the flu. Yeah. And so there's also, I put it on my cover page that an MSNBC journalist recently quit and came out and said, I quit, it's not news anymore, it's all CIA propaganda. So when you have a media with an agenda that is cooperating with whoever, if you want to call it New World Order or industry or corrupt governments or all of the above, we're here. And so
my limited knowledge of the connection between 5G and COVID is that 5G weakens our immune system by what is it, capturing oxygen from
it absorbs oxygen. So we basically have someone we're sharing the environment with who's an oxygen hog and doesn't care if we fall over dead. And that was one of my first observations, Alon, was watching some of the videos from citizens in Wuhan. Apparently that's what the report was. And this was a perfectly healthy person walking along the sidewalk, and they would just face plant right in the concrete. And I'm like, that's oxygen deprivation. You just walked into an area where there was absolutely no oxygen. And that's how fast I believe the body goes, okay, crash. So,
and so you add a weakened immune system, and you add a virus to it that's gonna, you know.
Yes, it makes the virus more wicked. You know, what is less than the flu now becomes deadly. So, but and the other thing that's concerning to me is there has been what I consider a blatant rollout of 5G technology during this shutdown.
Yeah, oh yeah, they take advantage. They put us in house arrest, and they take advantage of that to spread it out. The worst for me is that they position a lot of them next to schools.
Yes, they're actually putting them in some schools, and I'm putting up posts periodically saying, look, I strongly suggest that you get an EMF specialist or go buy a meter and check your kid's school before you put them back. You can't taste this stuff, smell it, feel it until it's too late.
Well, there's more and more studies coming out from reputable scientists that 5G is not good for human beings. It's some Brussels actually decreed that there will not be 5G in Brussels. You know, some countries, some cities are already blocking 5G from coming in.
Yes, I've read
And
and
you know, so you know, you have the general population say, "Oh, this is going to be cool. We can download movies in 5 seconds instead of you know whatever." Who cares? I mean, you can't even wait a few minutes to download a movie. So that's how they try to get you hooked. My phone is obviously a 4G. One concern of mine is that they're going to stop making 4G phones, and then the only choice we'll have is 5G, and I refuse to buy 5G phones.
Yeah, that's probably smart.
Yeah.
Dr. Buttar says that he estimates a 6-month, I guess I'm going to call it a saturation period. He's like, it's going to take 6 months for us to see the full impact. But, you know, I've been saying for 2 years, this is going to be a horror show. And this is, I believe we were already in trouble before 5G ever got here, just because of the tremendous saturation. And we've got in that map of layers and layers, I actually present Mid-America Land Restoration's Facebook post from January the 4th showing that, now bear in mind that an evacuation event for gamma radiation, nuclear radiation, used to be 300 counts per minute. This man put on his page some graphs showing the readings. Colorado Springs, Colorado on January the 4th was 10,000 counts per minute.
Wow.
Little Rock, Arkansas, 7,500 to 8,000. He's got about 13 graphs on there. And, you know, Fukushima's still rolling out. It's, you know, it hasn't been fixed or addressed. And so it's a cataclysmic soup, you know.
Now,
that
we might want to clarify something. You did mention our president blocking the Chinese company, Huawei. I don't remember that. But he hasn't blocked other companies from installing 5G. So we're still at risk.
Are you aware of his tweet that Kofifi? Either one of you? Do you remember that Kofifi tweet that he did?
Yeah. There was, I mean, the other side made a big fuss about it. Yes, I do.
Okay, because they thought they acted like it was a typo.
Yeah.
And then I watched a 3-hour documentary recently because I'm very aware of where we are in this story. And so I kind of feel responsible to keep staying aware and a little bit ahead of the step and hollering back, but not sure it's going to, I don't know. I don't know what to do here, but okay. So in this, this documentary, they pointed out that he did not remove it or say, oops, typo. He doubled down.
Yeah.
And said, in spite of lots of negative press, Kofifi ... enjoy. And so it turns out, he says that this documentary is reporting that when Donald Trump came into office, he became aware that China had actually created and sold us cheap steel. It was inferior steel, and they did it knowingly.
Yes.
And so he says they've done the same thing with 5G. So what he did is that he hired a bunch of brainiacs and said, tell me how to protect ourselves. And they have come up with this. Kofifi is actually a formula for cobalt, vanadium, and iron sandwiched between magnets, which neutralizes the harmful impact of 5G.
Okay.
Now, that's above my head, but I'm happy to know that somebody thinks they can fix this.
Right.
And it gives me hope. And there's other things about this story that would take up too much time here, but I believe there's validity to it. So it's a ray of hope.
So let's go back to the health side of things for a while, and then we'll go back to how do you recommend people protect their immune system or strengthen the immune system to resist that virus?
Well, as you and I both know, food is always huge. Got to eat good. You have to eat high quality, healthy food, and you have to know what's food and what isn't. The other thing, I made some notes last night because I knew that question was going to come up. And then I was thinking this morning, but wait a minute, one of the first things that I would want to say is people need to clean up their electrical environment. They need to hardwire their computers. They need to put a case on their phone, and they need to keep it in airplane mode. I am going to start advocating strongly that people get a landline. And there's lots of reasons to get a landline. One of them is it tells our government that we want that to be a utility that we use, that we want access to. Most of the infrastructure is still there. Anyway, that's another story, but the FCC got sued by the regulators, which was a bunch of attorneys that came out of retirement because they were so angry about this 5G situation, and they came out and sued the FCC because the FCC actually took our money that was for copper line infrastructure development, even into rural areas, and moved that money over to 5G, and they can't do that. These regulators won this lawsuit recently, and they are saying that as a result of that, 5G is no longer profitable. And so now we have the job of trying to get our legislators to understand that you were stolen from, the money was retrieved and put back. Now here's what you need to do with it. And so that's there's some more hope there.
I'm seeing resistance coming from from all over the world. I believe the British are more advanced because they've been already swamped with 5G. And I've seen videos of 5G towers being set on fire. And
yes, me too.
And all that.
Yay!
One thing that really upset me is when and then I understood afterwards why they were doing that. But in some parts of England, they were cutting off trees in Europe as well, in parts of Europe, cutting off trees because 5G is blocked by trees. So, I mean, destroying nature to encourage this poisonous technology, just, I mean, that should drive the environmental people crazy, right? So far, we haven't heard too much from these guys.
Well, you know what I'm finding, Alon, because I feel like ever since I was injured, it's like I've been going down hallways and knocking on doors, seeing if I can find anybody awake, anybody willing to help. There is, I believe we have been and are going to be further, if we don't stop it, being changed at a fundamental level by this technology. I believe it is subduing us. And if you think about its relationship to fluoride in the fluoride in the water creates a neurological pathway for aluminum. And then they put aluminum in our deodorant and our baking powder and in some foods and, all kinds of stuff. And so you've got this perfect storm, and then you dial frequency into that. And yes, we become kind of, I don't think AI is going to work long term because you can't turn this into a machine. It won't work. It will fail. But I think they're dumb enough to try. One thing I've learned about evil is it's very ignorant and it's very arrogant. And that's what makes it so dangerous. They don't have any internal check system.
Ignorant, I don't know, but they definitely underestimate the human spirit to be able to, once to start to wake up. I know a group that we've already interviewed in the past, Moms Across America.
Yes.
Their big fight used to be GMOs, and they're switching over to 5G, fighting 5G, and you don't mess with moms, right?
No, yeah. Remember what the Mothers Against Drunk Drivers did.
Yeah.
It actually made a difference. So,
and you know, I used to stay away from all of this 5G and vaccines and all of that, but as I'm starting to understand better the implications, I starting posting against 5G and against vaccine recently.
Yeah.
Watch a few videos. That's one of the silver lining in a way that being confined, you have a lot more time to watch, you know, stuff. That is, if you're not glued to the TV and the mainstream media, that is.
Well, and I think people are waking up. I watch Facebook's kind of I've been in there, goodness gracious, probably since mid 2000s, and people are waking up. This COVID shutdown is actually giving people time to see what's going on around them. Yeah. And I think more of them are going, wait a minute, I don't want to live in a world where, and I think it's pretty amazing, Bill and Melinda Gates and their foundation and the Pure Bright Institute and their incestuous relationships with Dr. Fauci and his history, and you know,
and the WHO, the World Health Association.
Absolutely. I mean, it's what we have known for a long time. The regular people that are locked in their houses are now becoming aware of, and so I think this is going to be at our advantage. And I recently put a post on Facebook, Alon, that I guess it's been maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago, and I said, okay, I'm going to go on record, because while I'm looking at a country and by collateral damage, a world that could be on the precipice of complete implosion, financially and otherwise, I cannot get rid of nor deny any longer that I have this warm, fuzzy feeling in my core of my being that something really great is about to happen.
Yeah. Once we go over the hump, because I believe that short term, not only we are facing horrible unemployment levels, 36 million as of last Thursday, potentially for sure recession, potentially depression, similar to the 1930s. It's going to take a lot of waking up for people to realize that there's more to life than you know, buying new toys every 5 minutes. I'd like to go back to a feeling that I've had, which is being confirmed more and more, which is from the beginning of this crisis, I had the feeling that we were led by the nose and manipulated by NGOs like the World Health Association, the UN, the new gods, the scientists. You know, one thing I noticed pretty early on, how the CDC was dragging its feet, the CDC and the FDA, dragging their feet to bring mask, proper protection equipment, denying the virus was actually dangerous for a few weeks before they flipped. You know, I know I'm going to sound like you know, conspiracy theory. Do you think all of this was kind of planned and organized beforehand?
Well, it appears to be. I mean, that's what the evidence says. When I look and see that Bill Gates owns a patent to the virus, and that it was several years ago, and then in October they ran a pandemic kind of model to see what would happen, and you know, and then he believes there's too many humans, and then he wants to make a vaccine for us. You know, it kind of starts, you start putting all the pieces together, and that's what I think is interesting, is that he pushed so hard that a petition to investigate him for crimes against humanity at whitehouse.gov garnered over 500,000 signatures. Wow. And there was some sort of, I don't know how they term it over there, but someone in Italy that stood up at what would I think would be equivalent to our congressman or a representative, stood up and called for the same thing, that they be investigated for crimes. So he may have drawn a lot of attention to himself in the wrong way. So now people start seeing him for who he is. But
that's the one thing I can't help wonder is who made him the boss of the COVID-19. I mean, all of a sudden he's all over the place claiming that we all need to be vaccinated, we all need to be tracked, we all, you know, it's like we're looking at, you know, obviously New World Order control. The globalists trying to control the people, people. So we go from a vaccine. What I also didn't understand is how the politicians were so quick to overreact and shut the whole economy down worldwide, not just, you know, obviously you saw a progression, right? It started in China and moved to Europe, and then eventually it came here, Australia, but the reaction was the same everywhere. Politicians, whether it's ministers, you know, presidents, whatever, they all shut down their economies out of fear of being sick. And what doesn't make any sense is we've gone through multiple pandemics over the years, the past 20 years for sure, and we never shut down the economy ever. Even during the Spanish flu, the economy was not shut down. And the main reason why so many people died, because it was right after World War I, and there was a lot of, you know, very already weakened and sick people and so on and so forth. But they didn't even shut down the economy then. So they, you know, like you said, a virus that, you know, is not necessarily more dangerous than the SARS or the MERS or even Ebola, or, you know, possibly slightly more dangerous than the regular flu. And we have either recovery rate or, you know, of 99.7%, so 0.03 death rate. And we shut down the whole world for that.
Okay, so that should tell us what? That is not what this is really about.
No.
And I honestly believe that if you're going to, and I'm a person that I pick things up and look at it from several angles and see what I see and what smells right, you know, and what smells rotten. And if you own the media and you hate Donald Trump, and, you know, he just did a trade deal with China that, you know, they've been raping this country for a long time because all of his predecessors gave China our jobs. They gave, I mean, they gave them the consumers, they gave them everything. You know, Walmart was founded on Made in the USA. You know, do y'all remember that? Everything in the store was made in the USA. I bet you can't find 5 items in there now made in the USA. You know, so they switched on us.
I think that one movement that's starting to gain some speed is let's get back to made in the USA.
Absolutely.
And buy American. And I suspect that this is going to spread out through the world. Stop buying Chinese. You know, pay a little more if you have to. Because, you know, typically when you buy Chinese stuff, typically, not always, but typically it's cheap stuff that's not going to last very long. You're going to have to buy it again. So buy something good, quality, solid, that can be fixed here in this country without having to be, you know, shipped back God knows where, and put the money back into our economy. Of course, you're going to have people say, well, it's too complicated to bring back factories to America. No. And I say, well, Trump already convinced a few of them to come back. So, you know, probably a little pressure, a little incentive, a little pressure, you know, a little bit of carrot and the stick and combination. And some, not all, some company either bring back jobs to America, or they're moving away from China. For example, Apple moved its operation out of China into India, which doesn't help us. Doesn't help us very much, but it's at least it's a. So we have I think we're also going to see a more nationalistic movement throughout the world where all this globalist crap is not going to fly anymore. People are going to want to regroup and you know, buy local, use local. Yeah.
And that's what I love about being up here. And we've got a freezer coming. By the way, can't find a 17 to 20 cubic foot freezer for 250 miles. Wow. So we had to order one 6 weeks ago, and it will be here. And then I'm going to start. And there are probably at least a dozen farms, but meat producers, no antibiotics, no hormones, grass-fed, etc. That kind of level. I don't know, there's probably 8 or 10 of them 2 hours away. So Mother and I are going to take the truck and some ice chest and head off to some farms one day after the freezer gets here. But I think that's also what's waking people up, is they saw that the people that say that they care about us, and you know, it really angers me because our government's supposed to represent the people. This is supposed to be a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. And it has turned into a government that's in bed with industry, for industry, and by industry.
Most of our politicians are bought and paid for on both sides, by the way, both sides. Right. Not just
one. Oh, I agree. I agree.
Because they're smart. They spread the money out. You know, let's buy a little on this side, let's buy on this side, so that they get what they want, which typically corporations want laws that benefits them and not us, not the little people. That changed a while back when the Supreme Court allowed corporations to be treated like
a person,
people, right? Like a person, right?
They're a soulless person.
Yeah,
that's the problem. That corporation is without a soul, and so.
And I think people are starting to realize that you know, and this is something I've been telling my son for a long time. I said, if stuff hit the fan, don't count on the government to come and save you. Count on your neighbors.
Right.
So be nice to your neighbors.
Right.
Because they're going to be there to help, and vice versa. You're going to help them, because you can't count on the government, because the only interest they have is their own. You know, especially politicians.
That's what I love about the place up here. It does. It feels like, I mean, we just arrived November the 7th. It was our first. We didn't finish the trip. We had to come in small trucks because you can't get a moving van down here to this house, and so. Just over the winter, November to end of January, we were in the process of moving. And so we have been here, I guess we're going on 7 months now. And I can pick up the phone and have help in probably 3 phone calls, maybe 1. That sense of neighbor is here. I didn't have that in Austin. You know, if I went over to a neighbor's house in Austin, I think they would be like, well, you know, maybe. Here it's how can I help? And it brings, what's interesting, it brings that out in me. You know, it's like, oh, well, if you're going to treat me that way, then I'm going to respond. And by the way, we went to the farmer's market the one day that it didn't rain. And out of 7 people we met, 5 were from Texas.
Okay.
And one man just bought the canoe and kayak part of the business that's at a little hotel downtown. And he's from Austin. Right. So we're all finding our way up here.
I'm getting the feeling that the Texans are doing what the Californians used to do, where they move up the coast to Oregon and Washington State, right? So Texans. So I'll be in when I come and visit you, I'll be in known territory, I guess.
No, it's wonderful.
I'm still a city boy at heart, but for a while I was considering Bastrop as a kind of a little bit out of the way, you know. I haven't really decided anything. I'm just kind of playing around with the idea, but
well, we love it up here. We just love it. I mean, the taxes, Let's see, in Austin, my mother's home on 1 acre in Granada Hills, Southwest Austin, 8 miles from downtown. Her taxes were $10,000 a year.
Wow.
Here we're on, yeah, Mark grabbed his heart. Here we are on 28 acres. That is stunning in beauty. There is a little all-weather strip. I mean, it's not a stream, but it's flowing enough. When it rains, it will actually, it gets pretty active. But if you look out either side of this house out the window, the land goes, we're at the bottom of a V. So if you look out that window, the land goes almost straight up and almost straight up this way. So it's a half a mile driveway down from the road. So you can't see the house. You can't see it in the way they did this driveway. You can't see the house until you come down and actually make the last turn, and then you can see a roof. So it is, there's a sign at the entrance that calls it the hiding place. And it was actually named after, this was built and inspired and named after Corrie ten Boom and her story. And she was hiding the Jews when she was alive, her and her sister, and ended up in a Nazi camp, concentration camp, and her sister died there. But anyway, it's a very fitting house and a fitting narrative for where God sent me and what was going on. It's like, I'm putting you in the hiding place. And so,
and yet you're not that far from town.
No, I'm not. And there's Harrison is 18 miles, and it takes about 35 minutes to get there, and it's 13,000 people, and you have a Walmart and a health food store and some Mexican restaurants that aren't anything like Tex-Mex. So, anyway, the lady, one of the ladies and I at the farmer's market, I said, my goodness, if there's so many Texans here, we need to have a Texas festival. Yeah. And I said, and she said, that'd be great. We could do it at the community center at Mount Sherman. And I said, yep, we're going to cook barbecue, potato salad, and all the stuff that they don't do here, like that we do it there. Yeah, and we're going to have a Tex-Mex day. And so. Okay.
So getting back to business here. One of the challenges that a lot of people have where confined is mental and emotional challenges. Do you have any suggestions with that?
Again, it goes back to clean up your electrical environment, clean up your food, get knowledge, because to me, the more you know, the more you can actually act on. Ignorance is really scary.
Yes.
Yes, because that's just an absence of knowledge.
They want to keep us in fear, so we're paralyzed. Yes. So knowledge is power.
Right. So I say, if you don't know how to eat healthy, learn, do it, change your life, clean out your pantry, make a commitment, be radical, because if you're not radical, it's not going to stick. That's how I do it anyway, is that I do things radically, and then you don't let it back in. So, and then you learn how to live according to the new standard of convictions that you have. So, get knowledge, diet. Do what?
Buy local and fresh.
Buy local and fresh. I am a big advocate of grounding and earthing. I'm, my computer, I'm sitting here. So, and this all affects our health, because if your electrical environment is not healthy, then you have high levels of oxidative stress. So every bit of grounding and earthing that you can do actually contributes electrons, because oxidative stress is basically a group of molecules that's missing an electron. So the more you're grounded and the more you are in touch with the earth and those attributes of the earth that we need, such as magnetism and other stuff, then the better off you are. So I'm sitting here. I have a grounding sheet on my bed. I have a grounded pillowcase. I have a laptop. And so it has a shield wrapped around it. And I buy a lot of this stuff at lessemf.com. And it's got a radiation screen in front of it that's grounded. It's got an external keyboard that's grounded, and I'm sitting on a grounding pad, and here's my blue light blocker glasses, which I normally wear, but I didn't want the reflection, which keeps your body, because looking at these screens actually prevents your body from producing melatonin, which prevents deep sleep. And that's where we get our restorative sleep. So in the book, I shared, there's 20 pages of information on what I, do to stay well and some of the supplements I take. I'm a big believer in vitamin D. And I take selenium to help me absorb and utilize iodine. And I take iodine because we have radiation coming at us in so many different forms that it will protect the thyroid. So I take a really quality health food store vitamin, multivitamin, multimineral. And let's see. Oh, I was laughing at myself. Had you ever watched Kevin Costner in Tin Cup? And he was a struggling golf pro. Mark's saying yes. And he had a cap on, and there was some sort of like a plumb bob hanging here, and he had a face mask, and he had stuff on his clubs, and it was just, and that's kind of how I feel. I have a magnetic bracelet which has the Schumann resonance embedded in it. I have a magnetic bracelet around my ankle, because when we're in touch with the earth, that's what we're doing, is we're being fed magnetic energy. So anywhere we can get that is a good way to bring it into your world. So keeping the body healthy, knowing how to do that and doing it. I don't drink soft drinks. They are incredibly dehydrating, and water is a huge factor in staying healthy and helping your body flush the toxins. So,
a few months ago, we interviewed this lady in, can't remember who it was Idaho, I believe, where they bring out, what is it called? Source water, from deep down, like 1,600 feet down. And I've been drinking this for the past 6 months now. So I was about to cancel that, and then I read a posting again, maybe it was used about or against fluoride, and I realized, well, maybe I should not cancel and keep on drinking this very clean. Not only is very clean, but it also is alkaline.
Yeah, good.
So they put on the packaging and say this is it's like medicine, it's healing water.
Yeah, so it's important. Well, we bought a Berkey up here. In Austin, we used Hill Country Springs, because they are actually a local spring. Yeah. And I think it's important for our bodies to eat local as well as drink local. So I like that aspect of it. And here, that's not an option. So we bought a Berkey filter, and they do put fluoride. We have city water, and they do put fluoride in it. So we bought a Berkey and put the fluoride and arsenic filters in the bottom, and it tastes wonderful. And so I do things to adjust the alkalinity, and Himalayan crystal salt, I think, is really important to stay healthy. I think it gives, it's not, if you think of it as like salting your food, that's the wrong thinking. I think it's a mineral salt is how I think of it, like you'd give a cow, so.
Yeah. Anyway. I understand that Mark is putting a little pinch of Himalayan salt in his drinking water.
Yeah.
As a, alkalizing, and also help feed the cells. Because we are, 70% water?
Yes, and we're highly electrical. And we need minerals. We need minerals, big time. So, and the body, when it gets acidic, which it does under oxidative load, then it becomes more acidic. And so it's like I say in the book, that we live in a world now that you can't be ignorant. And if you're going to survive this thing, you better get to figuring out what they're doing and how to address it Otherwise, you're not gonna make it.
Well,
So,
which goes in the way we were talking, which is stress and fear are highly acidic.
yes, yes. Yeah, and there's, somebody got mad at me because after about a month, I put up a post and said, if I had a business, I'd open it. And that was about 2 days before that salon owner in Dallas did that. And I was like, yay for you, girl. And one of my friends in Austin, she's a yoga teacher, extremely liberal. I have a lot of liberal friends that love and admire me, and they want to choke me. So she falls in this category. And she wrote me and goes, you want to take that attitude to the front lines? And I was like, well, I'm willing to talk to you about it, but pretty much, yeah. Why? And she's like, I have a friend that has COVID and she's suffering and she's in New York. And I wrote back and said, well, first of all, somebody told her she has COVID.
Yeah.
That's way different than she has COVID. And I said, and the psychological aspect of telling the right person or the wrong person that they have it can give them symptoms. I mean, we know this. This is not any new science. And so, and I said, and the other thing that you don't recognize is what else do they have in New York? And she's like, what? And I said, 5G.
Yeah.
They've got some antennas and some, they showed on one video, it was a metal, it just looked like it was probably, if I put my arms around it, I could probably reach side to side. And it looked like a big cylinder that had been flattened. And it's in their metro area. And I'm like, nobody even knows what's in it.
Right.
And I'm like, this is insane. And that's kind of my beef with my state rep up here. I've gotten his ear, and he's willing to help, and he wanted to do an opt-out law. And I said, that's not going to help. I said, Corpus Christi, Texas, the energy company, where there's an opt-out law in Texas on these meters, a friend of mine called who has rheumatoid arthritis and a legitimate reason to not want that meter on her house, and they told her that's not their policy. And I said to this state rep, I said, what they just said was, we don't have to obey the law.
No, but they have to obey the consumer. You see,
yes.
when you take on any type of utility service, you're in a contract, and they can't change the terms of the contract without your agreement.
Right, and
so
they don't care.
If they don't agree, first they are not honouring the contract, and if they continue not to agree, you can hold them liable, and make them prove that what they're installing will not harm you. We haven't got to prove it. They've got to prove it won't harm us before they can enforce it on us.
I agree with you 100% that that's the way the world should work.
No, it's
but that's not
commerce. If you know how to use the law of commerce, it's just so easy. But
and that's what I think that's what the Empower movement is doing. Yes. But here we have a utility corporation, which is actually a legal monopoly. And in exchange for being a legal monopoly, they get their prices regulated. And they claim to be member owned. And I've had 3 people here in town tell me this, and I've also found it in a lawsuit online, that they have actually locked their members out of public meetings. This is not just this utility corporation.
That's big business standard right the way through.
Oh, it's horrible. It's illegal. You can't do that.
That's when you drop commercial liens on them.
Well, I don't know how to do that. And I think that's what Empower movement's doing. And I think they're about to take their movement online, is my understanding. Right. So we'll see if that moves forward.
Kathy, did I send you the link to that website called Freedom Taker?
Yes, you did. Yeah. Is that Jerry Day?
Yeah, and they have a lot of information about EMF help and forms that you can use to counter notice of liability for unsafe utility meter and so on and so forth. You can use all of that. Yeah.
Just come back
here's the thing. They don't care.
No, they
I
don't.
mean, I can't find any. Listen, I called I got in touch with a man here. He's in Little Rock. He's part of the Department of Labor. He's the chief inspector for the Board of Electrical Examiners and Licensing. Really wonderful 70-year-old man, very candid, very straightforward, honest. And when I said, look, I'm hearing a constant high-pitched squeal here. And I said, sometimes it gets pretty invasive. And a neighbor hears it, and another man in town hears it and said, yeah, she's right. And it started after they installed these meters. And so I found out these are called pure tones, and they're actually illegal according to the EPA. They are determined to be ubiquitous noise pollution. And this man, Charles Covington, the chief inspector, said, if you're hearing that, it means there's a problem. And I said, well, somebody better do something. Somebody that matters. And he's like, well, our office doesn't have any jurisdiction. And I'm like, that's what I have found all the way up this ladder. It started out with me asking the utility corporation to accommodate me according. I am a member of a protected class now with this disability. You can't ignore me. You can't blow me off. You have to accommodate me if possible. They said no in writing. They mocked me. They blew off my University of Texas MD's letter of medical necessity. The Disability Rights Group of Arkansas said your request for accommodation and my willingness to send in a picture of my meter readings on my hardwired, shielded, and grounded computer once a month is perfectly reasonable. He's the legal director for disability rights. So when they wouldn't do it, he said, okay, file a complaint with Fair Housing of Arkansas, Fair Housing Commission. I did. The guy took my complaint and said, oh, if you have a letter from a doctor, that's what we respond to. A week later, I get a letter that says, I'm sorry, we have no jurisdiction. The complaint then went to HUD, and HUD took my case, and HUD looked it over, and 3 weeks later, I got a letter that said, sorry, we have no jurisdiction. So I went to my EMF injured forum of people like me and said, hey, this is what I'm finding. What do y'all got to say? And one person replied and said, about a dozen of us had very strong cases, and we all filed the complaint through ADA and then the Department of Energy and DOJ and the Department of Energy. And it sat there for 2 years, and we all within a week of each other got a letter that said, I'm sorry, we no longer have jurisdiction. So what these criminals have done is they have pulled jurisdiction from every agency for us to report their crimes. And so they're not going to get away with it. Long term, they're not going to get away with it. It's a question of which method are we going to use to take them down. So. Right. Or all of the above.
That's why they pay the lobbyists big bucks, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So there's no way to sue them in court?
Well, you know, I was watching Dr. Deborah Davis last year, and she had a 5-part YouTube thing on genocide. And it was like genocide parts 1 through 5. And in one of them, and I was thinking about that this morning, I took a screenshot where she showed that the American Bar Association sent a statement to, oh boy, it might have been the World Health Organization or some agency like that, and said that our commitment is to the green movement. Well, the green movement means every bit of this smart grid, smart technology, smart cities, smart everything.
Yeah.
But you know, about a month ago, I saw that Google actually abandoned a smart city project. They completely walked away from it. Yeah. You know about it, Mark?
Yeah. It was no longer profitable.
Yeah. And so we have, I mean, they've got some real problems. So I'm not sure they're going to be able to complete the agenda. And I put up a post recently and said, looks like God's going to save our sorry honeys one more time. So, you know, and I do. I told Mother, it feels like to me I'm watching the epic battle between good and evil. And it is. It's at a peak point. So,
and we our job, Mark and I and you and other people, is to try to educate and awaken people to that issue. And trust me, once people are going to lose their job left and right, which is going to happen, it's already happening, but it's going to get worse, in my opinion. Or a lot of people are in suspended animation, I would call it, because they are currently receiving unemployment benefits, which will end in July. And once that is done, it's already said that half the companies will not reopen because they cannot afford to reopen. They cannot afford to run their business at 50% capacity or less. And some corporations will also lay off people because they realize that, you know, working from home works out for them. So they don't have they don't have to pay for office space. They don't have to, and you know, all they do maybe they reduce the office space and then they do a rotating schedule where people only show up like maybe 1 or 2 days a week, so on. So a lot of people that thought they were safe, all of a sudden they're going to be faced with, you know, a second wave of unemployment, and that's when stuff is going to hit the fan, where people are starting to go, oh my God, you know, what's going on here? And as you know, I would say 90% of the population doesn't have $1,000 saved away.
Right.
So they're already struggling to pay their rents and buy food. I mean, the food lines are tremendous all over the country already.
Wow. They're not reporting that, are they?
Oh, no. I mean, I saw a video here in Austin. There's someone driving along a food line towards the Central Texas Food Bank, and it was about 3 miles long.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and,
see, I haven't seen that.
There was another well-known video in San Antonio, same thing.
Yeah, now I heard that about San Antonio, and I called a friend of mine who's in Austin but has family in San Antonio and asked him to check it out, and I just realized he never answered, so maybe he never never heard anything about it.
He's not got to the end of it yet, that's why.
Pardon me?
Yeah.
He's not got to the end of the line yet.
Yeah.
But it's a sad case to hear that within less than 2 weeks of the shutdown, people were already lining up for food, you know, and it's like, so part of me was like, you mean you didn't save money in case stuff happened?
People don't.
So one thing I made a comment to the effect that, you know, in that line of car, I saw plenty of new cars. So you can afford to buy a new car and pay $300 or $400 a month in payment, but yet you can afford to buy food. How does that make any sense?
Well, it's the American way. Everybody took everything for granted, and I do think this is going to be a really great wake up, because they're seeing now that, well, you know, I looked at because I have some wonderful liberal friends, and I'm like, why do we see the world so different? And I really believe that it boils down to, they believe the government is here to take care of us, and I believe that's a complete lie. Yeah. And that that's what they were supposed to do, but they have turned into our pimps, and we are the hookers, and they sell us off to the Johns, the corporate Johns.
And the thing that people should be aware, if they do take care of us, like some people have been suggesting giving $2,000 a month to everybody until this thing blows off, that's socialism, and that is enslaving. They're enslaving people, because now all of a sudden you don't want to work. Anything. Well, you don't want to work, and you also don't want to complain too much, because if you do, then they're going to take the money away from you.
Interesting. Right? Yeah. Yes. Well, that's where we are already, and they're already kind of, I think, doing litmus test to see how far we'll go, you know.
Yeah, but I mean, one piddly $1,200 check once is not gonna
in 11 weeks. And where did I read that they gave themselves $54,741 each? You know, it's like, oh yeah, Mark went, what? Yeah. Well, they're criminals.
And meanwhile, they give billions of dollars to corporations that have done nothing but
Planned Parenthood got 81 billion.
Right.
Is that right? Or million?
Yes, something like not billion, millions. Yeah,
million.
But also companies, corporations that use all their cash to buy back stocks so that the value of their shares would go up, so they get richer and richer, and they want the government to save them. I say, hell no. You know, you didn't do what you were supposed to do and use your investors' money responsibly. Now you're on your own.
Well, and that's what they're doing with some of these states too, that Trump said, no, some of these states are asking for money because they mismanaged theirs for the last 10 years. And so.
And not to parlay long, but have you noticed that most of these states are liberal states?
I wasn't going to say that, but I will let you do it. It's your show.
I have said it. I mean, you look at California, Illinois, Washington State, Oregon, New York, New Jersey. All of these states are in trouble, and they're the one begging for money. You don't see that in Texas and the other side. I mean, I'm now like a big fan of. I'm a libertarian, so I'm in somewhere in between. But seems to be a fact that the Republican-led state seems to manage their money a lot better than the Democrat states.
Yeah.
You know, and of course, it's a little too easy to, blame everything on liberals, but the leadership for sure is behaving like morons and clowns.
Well, they're thieves and criminals, and they're trying to protect their herd. You know, truly, we are their hookers. So they use and utilize us, and that is. You know, when you think about what this country was founded on, and that I've got a list over here because I try to keep myself mindful of it, your unalienable rights, which reminds me, you know, and they say that these are not rights given to us by a government. They're rights given to us by our creator God. This is not, you know, they don't get to do and that's why I'm like, oh, Mark. I went down this list one day and said, let me see how many things they're violating here. A lot. I've got a stack over here. It's on that blog. I think it starts out with what is 5G, but it goes into an 89-page reference list of the laws that are being broken. So this is going to call for a revolution of some sort.
Yeah, somebody posted on Facebook the other day. You know, my position on face mask is that while I'm walking around in the out in the open and everything, I will not wear a mask. Okay, that's you know, and I will stay at the distance from people. If people are concerned, I will not. Now, if I go into a grocery store, I will put the mask for, you know, whatever long it takes. Usually, I don't stay very long anyway. But I just refuse to wear the mask like some people. I see people driving wearing the mask
by themselves,
riding their bicycles, running, walking in the parks with the mask. It's like, for God's sake, you know. But they've been so brainwashed.
Yes, I get it. It's very disturbing, isn't it?
So, but the thing is, and the thing that annoys me to no end is the fact that they are trying to convince us that we're criminals by not wearing a mask, right?
Did you see the video of the people yelling at the woman in the grocery store?
Yeah.
She was not wearing a mask, and they all were. And I mean, it was about to get violent. And I thought, oh my gosh, look what they've done.
Yeah,
you give people a tiny bit of knowledge.
I call that brainwashing. They've been brainwashed. So first of all, the government told us we don't need masks, right? I mean, even Fauci said that. And all of a sudden now we all have to wear the mask. And the worst part is it's bringing out the worst in some people, because now you have people writing out other people now wearing the mask. You know, actually calling and say, hey, my neighbor's not wearing a mask, so you should, whatever. It's true. I mean, it's true. And that leads us to another issue, which is the whole tracking. Now, I don't know if you know, but, they're trying to track you on your cell phone. If you have or been exposed to potential contamination, they will call you once the apps tell them that you've been in contact with infected people. They will call you and ask for personal information, address, date of birth, state of health, blah blah blah. Personal information you should not share with anyone unless And then all of a sudden you'll be on the list, on the database that they will use later on to come and say, oh, by the way, since you've been infected, you have to be vaccinated, right?
Since you've been exposed to someone who has it,
right? So there's a progression of controlling and tagging, controlling, and then some people even said that. Actually, Bill Gates says that, everyone's vaccine should be tagged so that we know the good people from the people that refuse to be vaccinated, right?
Yeah, and he's got a vaccine tattoo that he's going to put on. I'm telling you what, I am so happy that I no longer have a cell phone.
Yeah.
You can't even get a cell signal down here at the house. Yeah. One of the things that I tested with Mother one day is in Austin, if we talked about pizza in front of the computer, then pizza ads start coming up. Y'all know that, right? On Facebook.
Right.
Here, that doesn't happen. We talked about a few things on purpose. We're very careful about, knowing where we are in our environment now. And I said, so I want to run a test. And so we talked about some specific things to see, and it doesn't come up because we are in nowhere.
Yeah.
I mean, so, and once the trees come out, some people with a Verizon phone could get a signal down here at the house in the driveway when there was no leaves on the tree. Now that there are leaves on the trees, and honey, I'm sitting literally in a little pocket of forest. Right. So you can't get a signal. So it's interesting because no, they can't seem to hear us through our computers here. So
right. So moving along, we did the approach where we mentioned vaccines. So first of all, do you really believe that they will come up with a vaccine, which is typically it takes 12 to 18 months, and it would be an unproven vaccine because they wouldn't have really. And the vaccine have not been proven to, not only they have not been proven to be safe, they have not been proven to really keep you healthy because...
No, these are not vitamins. These are not vitamins.
So let's talk about vaccine and what's in them and what could make us even sicker if we take the vaccine.
Well, this is first of all a therapeutic product that is made by corporations with a criminal track record. That's very disturbing. Yeah. They have complete legal immunity, so you can't sue them if they maim you. Yeah. They can't uninject it. So this is... well, this is insanity is what it is. It's not America. And so we know that they have human DNA, animal DNA, heavy metals, polysorbate 80, which they know causes cancer. I mean,
mercury.
Yeah, heavy metals. I mean, this is insane. So I put on a YouTube, there was a question, and my reply was, we now live on 28 acres. And one of the first things we did was install a gate, and you have to have a code to get in here. If you show up down at this house, I'm going to assume that you're trespassing, and there will be a shot fired over your head. No questions.
Well, if you're tall, tough.
Do what?
If you're
tall, that's tough. Well, there's a sign that Mother wants to paint and put on the driveway that says, due to the cost of ammo, there will be no warning shot. At the gate, we did put one up that's shaped like a tombstone, and it says RIP at the bottom and says, we don't call 911, and there's two pistols pointing at each other. We're going to put one down here near the house when you make that final turn that says you are now in range. And what is so funny is to watch my mother, because we bought this house from the most precious little Christian woman. I bet this house has never even had a cuss word spoken in it. Mm-hmm. And she had little things that she left for us that had scriptures on them and about peace and all that stuff. And I missed the opportunity, may go back and get it, of Mother taking these things down and putting up signs that basically say, you know, stand back. So it's kind of funny to watch it change ownership, but we are living in different times now.
Right, right. And so luckily you moved into a state that allows for firearms. Yes. Yeah. I remember the comment you made one time about your shotgun is right next to your yoga mat.
Yeah, it was leaning up in the corner of my bedroom, the shotgun and the yoga mat, for 4 months before I saw it and laughed at it. I was like, that's kind of funny. And I thought, well, both of them are really important tools to get me through this world we live in. So
that's for sure. So back to the vaccine. So I already know your answer, but I'm just going to ask, do you believe that vaccine is going to be a solution to this case?
Absolutely not.
Right.
No. I do. I'm curious to see how many people are brainwashed enough to accept it.
Well, you know, like
it's everybody wearing the mask.
Like, yes, pretty much.
That's what that is. That's actually a social study. That's a feasibility study. That's what it is.
Absolutely.
How many people can we sell this vaccine to? Everybody wearing a mask. So.
Well, you know, you create fear, then you brainwash people, and then they'll be happy to be vaccinated, actually.
Bring the solution,
right. Yeah. And another side effect, which not a lot of people seem to realize, is that this whole issue is also a very divisive issue, us against them again. You know, like there was not enough already. Right. So that's another way for the rich and powerful to divide us, you know, the pro-mask, the pro-vaccine against the anti-mask. And, you know, someone even posted, one of my liberal friends, you know, wearing a mask is not unconstitutional, which is wrong. I mean, it's illegal to force anybody, since it's not a law, it's only a suggestion. It's against the law to, you know, force someone to do something against their will in this particular case.
Yep. Well, and injecting them with a vaccine takes that statement to a whole nother level. Yeah. You know, this is just, no, we're not going to do that. And that's, you know, I don't like to be this radical sometimes, but every once in a while I pull out the statement that says some things are worth dying for.
Right.
And so, you know, I'm not going to live in this country. Kind of country. I'm not going to. You can try to do whatever you want to, but I'm going to donate my life to trying to take somebody that is important out with me to make a statement. But I'm not going to live under tyrannical rule. I'm not going to do it.
No.
So.
No, you know, there's actually a lot of job offers out there for jobs to track people, to track
contact
other people.
Tracers,
contact tracers, snitches,
snitches.
And when people are desperate because they lost their jobs, they will take the jobs, and
just like the brown shirts. I mean, this is just a complete replay. It's just a different setting.
Right. right?
Yeah.
When people are desperate for, you know, when they pay, these jobs are paid $20 an hour. It's described because a friend of mine posted something about it in Austin. It's described as a part-time from home job. So it's not full-time. It's kind of a contract job. There's no benefits or anything like this.
Right.
But it's money to pay the rent or to buy food. So a lot of people are probably going to jump at it because they are not aware, like we are, or they're desperate.
Yeah.
And that's going to divide us even more, you know, I think.
Well, I was surprised, by the way, up here, it's kind of funny. You can throw a stick and hit a pastor. I mean, everybody, the guy that came and installed the dish equipment, somebody's like, oh, he's a pastor. And somebody else that came and installed the phone system, and somebody said, he's a pastor. And I'm like, man, there's pastors all over the place here. Yeah. But so one of them, though, really neat guy, he owns the equivalent of, it's almost like a head shop downtown on the square. And he used to be a pastor for 26 years. And we got to talking, and he's from South Africa. And he told me one day, because I gave him a copy of the book, and he's 55 years old and already has a pacemaker. He had 2 major heart attacks, and then they put a $180,000 pacemaker in him. And I said, guess what? And he said, what? And I said, that probably came from your electric meter. And he went, what? And he was really fueled up. Anyway, I gave him a copy of the book, and I saw him a couple of weeks later, and he said, by the way, he must have read it or looked through it enough. He said, there's a whole bunch of us here ain't taking a mandatory vaccine. He said, it'll be lock and load time. You're in a good place. And I went, okay, good. Yeah, so, good. I mean, we moved back to where people are like they were 20 years ago. Tons of guns up here, and you're not going to come muscle them out. I mean, it's just, there's a lot of Trump supporters.
Right. Sounds to me you're pasteurized.
That was cute.
That was cute. Well, you know, once in a while I have a flash of genius. So
well, if you do it all the time, it wouldn't be surprising.
We talk about a lot of stuff that probably will upset a lot of our listeners. So, which is one thing we like to do sometimes. I mean, we've got to, you know, once in a while we have to stir up the pot, right? Right. What else should we talk about? Let's see. We talked about 5G. I guess for you, the question is irrelevant as far as getting out of confinement, because you are now really seriously confined, right?
No, it's just the world I'm living.
Yeah.
Like I wish the rest of people would. You know, it's incredibly peaceful here, and there is a neighbor vibe. I mean, it's just you know, so.
Well, meanwhile, people like you and I are the crazies, right?
Yeah, but you know what? I have a nephew that said something about me being crazy, and his best friend said, yeah, but she's the good kind of crazy. So he's actually a really big fan of mine. So good, I think we are all the good kind of crazy. So
okay, hopefully.
Yes, I think
hopefully we won't have a bunch of black cat cops breaking down our doors soon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and you know what? If you have a mindset of this is just we're spiritual beings having a human experience, then I believe the next place we go is an upgrade. It's certainly got to be better than this.
Yeah. Some people claim that hell is down here. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Well, I think it's pretty dadgum close. And so there's a little movie that came out. I think it's called. Oh, geez, I'm not going to remember it, but it's a little boy that had an appendicitis and he died. And while he died, he was a pastor's son, and he actually went to heaven and he met Jesus and all this kind of stuff. And so he came back and, of course, you know, began talking about this venture, and everybody, the whole town is like in an uproar, and the dad's begins to have some major questions, and even though he's a pastor, you know, but the little boy asked, you know, somebody asked him, what's it like? And he said, it's like here, but better.
Mm.
And I'm like, that's good, you know. I look around this little place. It is truly a sanctuary. And I tell Mother, I said, you know, that says that we get a mansion when we go to heaven. And I said, I don't want a mansion. I want a place just like this. I'd like the stream to be a little more active. And that's about all I would change. Yeah. So, you know, I wish everybody could find a place like this, because I think it's good for the soul. And I certainly needed it.
I read an article a couple of days ago that there is a lot of people are reevaluating their life, which is another side effect or silver lining, and realize that you know, nowadays, of course, that wouldn't work for you, but nowadays that a lot of things can be done online. They can move to any smaller town and not have to pay these outrageous rents and deal with traffic and pollution and so on and so forth. So it sounds like there's a beginning of a movement back towards the smaller town and the countryside and all that stuff.
Oh, by the way, the property taxes on this 28 acres, are you ready? $900 a year.
Wow.
They actually tax on tree coverage. So they encourage you to leave the trees. The more you clear, the more you pay taxes on.
Okay.
Because it's usable land versus non-usable. So there's a lot of, anyway, I've been telling people, you know, if y'all all kind of start moving up here, we kind of start defining the community. You know, you start bringing people of like minds together, and then you have actually formed a commune, but we're not all living in the same house where it gets a little weird. We just have plenty of coming together and
kind of what the Californians are doing to Texas, right?
Yes, yes, but not in a good way.
Yeah, not in a good way. Yes,
not in a good way. No, we left. Yeah,
I think I stirred the pot enough. Mark, it's your turn.
Hey, Mark, I've been.
So before we go any further, Kathy, can you remind us of your website? Because I'm sure there's a lot of questions.
Well, there are two of them, and one of them is noatt.blog. I'll hold this paper up again. I'm going to have to make it on a different color, but let me see if I can. There.
Yeah.
Can you see that? Okay, so it's noatt.blog, and that is the blog about technology and my story of what happened and what I've learned since then. And the other one is gettingwellgodsway.wordpress.com, or you can just go to gettingwellgodsway.com. That's the easy one, and it's just the name of the book. That mostly has reader comments, but I'm actually loving this book. It's made 4 grown men cry, so that is pretty shocking, and yet it was a story that it was very challenging, and it cost me a lot. And so I tell people that I kind of expected that. I didn't know if I was going to get it, but I expected it because there was so much blood left on the mat. So I'm glad to see that God is letting the right people read the book, and that they are actually hearing what he's got to say and are being affected by it. So
excellent. We've been going for a good hour and a half. You've given us a lot of information, and you've actually answered most of the questions I was going to ask you anyway as you've gone through.
Okay.
I don't have any more specific questions.
Okay.
Apart from one. Who is they?
Well,
when anyone who says, oh, they did this and they did that and they're going to do, who is they for you?
That 3-hour documentary that I watched on YouTube, it's called The Fall of the Cabal, parts 1 through 10.
I've seen. Yes. Did
you see the whole thing?
I missed. There was on one episode they blocked out or they shut down or whatever. I think it was number 4.
Oh, okay.
When she was actually naming names.
Yes. Well, there's a
If you
Okay,
know
so,
the full version, I'd like to.
okay, let me. I will. I've got notes here of a couple of things I'm going to send you, so I'll send you that. I watched that, and at the end of it, it said something, and I went, "What did you just say? Time travel, next dimensions, what?" And so, but I'm a person that I need this world to be bigger than we understand it. It's that's good for my soul. It leaves an avenue of hope open. And so, but I went, what in the world? And so I kind of go about my day for a couple of days, and I was kind of, you know, knocking on God's door going, you need to bring me some more information on that. And sure enough, another video shows up that was called Time Travel. And it was about 45 minutes long. I think it's 7 sections, Alon. And so I watched it, and it talked about the fact that John G. Trump, our president's father, was actually at MIT and met Tesla.
Oh, wow.
Yes. And not only did he meet Tesla, but apparently Tesla took a liking to him and shared some information with him because he was convinced that John G. Trump was in it for the right reasons. And sure enough, MIT, while John G. Trump was there, a study comes out, or some, I guess I want to call it a discovery, but I think of it more as revelations to mankind than that we discovered anything. But that was a direct result of those conversations with Tesla. And so the premise that they're presenting is that we, in fact, can do time travel, and that we can go in and out of other dimensions. And this gets into some stuff that's theoretical that I'm not going to say it, but I'm just very fascinated. What you got there, Alon?
I have something to show you. I don't know if that rings a bell, but
Ingersoll Lockwood.
Did you hear about this?
The collection, The Last President, Travels and Ventures. Whoa! Yes, I have heard about this. I can't believe you have the physical book in your hand. That's fascinating.
It was so out there that I said, I have to get that. So
good for you.
Travels and Adventures of Little Baron Trump, which is the son's
name. Yes.
Marvelous Baron Trump's Marvelous Underground Journey. I haven't read it yet. It's been sitting there because I have so many other books to read.
I know.
But apparently this gentleman, which is what, 1890.
Okay, that's what I was thinking. It was,
writing this book about this character. Of course, at the time, nobody knew who Baron Trump was, or was going to be, or possibly going to be. And apparently it's, I have not read it yet, and I will.
No, but I'm aware. Yeah.
Apparently this gentleman, quote unquote, predicted was...
That's how it seems.
Yeah.
That's how it seems.
What could happen, what is currently happening, what could happen. So, you know me, I'm always interested in weird...
Yeah, that would be a book I would buy. I just am amazed that you got your hands on it.
Well, it's on Amazon. It's like $14.
I think I'm going to have to get it. Ingersoll Lockwood.
And this is actually this is a collection. This is a compilation of all of his work.
Okay.
I was mostly interested in the story of Baron Trump. But,
yes, absolutely. Well, I'm going to get it. Absolutely, I'm going to get it.
So the collection, The Last President, or 1900 Travels and Adventures, you can find it easily on Amazon.
So the answer to your question, Mark, is that if I'm asked that directly, the answer is the New World Order.
Right. Which sort of is embodied in
everything.
the pharmaceutical, industrial,
everything,
armament complex type of thing.
Everything. They're like an STD that has gone like a plague level. It is. It's terrible. I mean, they are. But you know, I had hardcore liberal friend, a longtime massage therapist in Austin, that when she first met me, she was just, God sends me in to mess with people's dominoes, you know? It's like, right. And so she just looked at me like I was a weird anomaly for the longest time. And about 2 years ago, she called me and said, I want to come by and see you. And I said, okay. You know, I thought, okay. I mean, we love each other and have a great admiration for each other. She's a massage therapist and colleague, and she works in energy. And so I love her and love what she does. And so we have that in common. So, but that was kind of all. We did some exchanges, and there's no animosity or division, but we just on two different planets politically. So she comes by and is visiting for a while. And while she was there, she said, well, I just think I need to tell you that I've done a complete 180 and I am a big time Trump supporter. And I think he's here to actually stop and save us from the New World Order. And I was like, it's a good thing I'm sitting down, Barbara. So, but I think that's where we are. And I do think that he is dealing some deadly blows to him. And that's what I mean. I think God's going to save our sorry honeys one more time. And the question is, what do we do from here? And the only thing that makes me go, you know, lean towards this time travel, other dimension stuff is that we have so poisoned this planet that it will probably take 1,000 years to heal from our visit. So, well,
yeah, but on the other hand, look at how fast nature reclaimed, you know,
Chernobyl.
Just the past 2 months.
Yeah.
Look all over the world how the seas are clearer, the skies are clear, the animals are, you know, wandering around cities and so on and so forth. I don't think nature would take that long to, let's say, if we humans are a virus, if you consider us to be a virus,
I think that's good.
a virus upon Earth, and if we were eliminated tomorrow, I think nature will be back in the flash in 3 months or 6 months at the most. It'd be back in business and good riddance of the human scourge.
Well, and I was walking through the room the other day, and there was a guy on TV, and I've got to chase him down. He's actually literally on my list. The Dilbert cartoon, are you familiar with that?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, this person, I believe, I know for a fact, has something to do with that. So I have a way to chase him down. And he said that we actually have the technology now to be able to build a facility next door to a leaking nuclear storage or waste facility. And there is technology that can actually absorb that radiation, deplete the entire rods, absorb it, and shut itself down. And I was fascinated by that, because I keep looking, okay, so we get past this COVID thing. If we get past the New World Order, if we get past, what are you going to do about radiation? Because radiation doesn't care. I mean, it just doesn't care. It's just radiation and it kills things. And so the time travel next dimension thing makes me think, well, you know, if nothing else, I recognize I don't know everything. And there's a lot of possibilities out there. And so I believe there's good stuff coming from this, and there's good stuff coming to us. And so, and I know that makes absolutely no sense, but I have had several people that once I started saying that, they're like, I feel it too. So I met a man named Daryl Guberman. He makes YouTube videos, and he's kind of a badass. He's a 5'2" Jewish man, and he owns a quality control company. And one of the things that you know, they say about these meters is that they meet ANSI standards. And I'm like, well, if they meet ANSI standards, then ANSI's compromised because this is crap. So who is ANSI? I started looking around online and I found this man. And he's showing that ANSI since 2015 has been overseen by a communist Chinese nationalist who has a duty to commit espionage if Beijing asks him to. And I'm like, Beijing asked him to? What? They put data mining devices on all of our property. Mm-hmm. You know, he doesn't even need to do anything. So, but that's what I'm excited about because Trump, I do believe, with that executive order of May the 1st, gave us a way to say, get this Chinese crap off my house. And so I wrote a Clara that makes these meters. They bought them from GE. So GE manufactured them. And I said, I want to know where your meter and all components were made. They wouldn't tell me, and it's not on their website. They directed me to the utility corporation, and I wrote them, and the staff attorney's like, oh, I'll have to check with an engineer. And I'm like, you don't even know where the meters that you stuck on this house are made. So anyway, she knows what I'm chasing. But anyway, that's where I'm going to go next because I think Trump gave us an inroad. Rip and replace is what he was calling it. Rip and replace. So I'm going to try to.
Smart meter, obviously.
I'm sorry, say that again.
But not with another smart meter.
No, exactly. I mean, this is just, and they say now, oh, well, there's not any analog meters. Well, let's crank up a factory and get some going. You know, this is, I mean, he just had them retool some places so they could make ventilators, you know. Yeah. Chrysler's now making ventilators or something. So we can do this. There's hope. There's enough things out there that my hope is not ridiculous. It actually is grounded in you know, that there's some things out there that can save us, but it's an interesting time to be alive.
Yes, for sure.
Super job. Alan, that was all of my questions. All lovely.
Yeah, that's it. That was just it. Who is they?
Back to you, Alan.
Okay, ready for my infamous closing?
Okay.
All right, here we go. Thank you again, Kathy, for being on the Low Carb Paleo Show. And as we say in Texas, à votre santé, y'all.
Thank you very much. I enjoyed being with you guys again.